Yo, what up, guys? How's everyone doing? And here we are, back. The American Civil War Oversimplified, Part 1. So just a disclaimer right off the bat. I'm going to have to chop this up into two 15-minute videos. I just don't think there's a chance in hell I'm going to get away with a half an hour video. I hope that's alright with everyone. It's not just me. It's not just me like creating more videos to get more views, and it's nothing to do with that. I just halfway through the upload, it's gonna go. No. But what did we do? We done the American Revolution, man, and that was sick. I hope you enjoyed them videos. If not, go check them out and then maybe join me on this one. But let's get straight into this one. It's a long video, so I don't want to make it any longer than it has to be. But hope you guys enjoy.
Down below. Okay, Mrs. Lincoln, this is it. One last push, and we're done.
Oh my days. He's with the hat.
9 months and 4 days ago, my father brought forth upon my mother himself, and gave to her a child.
It's so hard to take these videos serious.
Brought forth upon my mother himself, and gave to her a child, conceived in a shack in Kentucky, and dedicated to the proposition that I will drink num-nums from a bottle and do little poo-poos in my pantses for the next 2 to 3 years. Now what is it babies do again? Oh yeah. I am not touching that.
I don't blame you.
Abraham Lincoln grew up with his relatively poor family in Kentucky, eventually moving to Indiana.
Look at all the KFC.
Abraham Lincoln grew up with his relatively poor family in Kentucky, eventually moving to Indiana, and finally, Illinois. He read a lot of books, worked a lot of jobs, wrote some questionable poetry, and finally entered the law. A lot of books, worked a lot of jobs, wrote some
Abraham Lincoln is my name, and with my pen I wrote the same. I wrote in both haste and speed, and let it here for fools to read. Oh, I fell into that one.
poetry, and finally entered the law profession. Despite being self-taught, he turned out to be a pretty
Lincoln's
clever
Lord
and
of
astute
Police.
lawyer. In one case, a guy claimed he witnessed a murder at night, and Lincoln was like, "How could you have seen anything in the dark? There was a bright full moon." A what? A bright full moon. Can you say that again, please? There was a bright full moon. A dim half moon? No, a bright full moon. That's funny, because according to this almanac, there was a dim half moon that night, which makes you a liar. Well, I got a bright full moon for y'all right here. Now that's what I call a rebuttal.
Mate, this is
Lincoln
just
and
getting
his
funnier and
cheekbones
funnier.
weren't only interested in law, however. He also dabbled in the world of politics, serving as a legislator in both local and national assemblies. And what a time it was. Not even 100 years after the Founding Fathers wrote, "All men are created equal," politicians were already asking, "Yeah, but what does that mean exactly?" It means all men. Yeah, but what does that mean?
It means all straight white men. That's what that means.
Exactly. And not just that. States' rights versus the federal government. What are the executive powers of the president? Is cereal a soup? The Founding Fathers left some of these questions perhaps a little too open to interpretation. And the biggest question of them all was slavery, an ugly mark on what should have been a revolutionary new nation based on liberty and democracy. Thomas Jefferson had written a condemnation of slavery in the Declaration of Independence, but out of fear of losing Southern states' support, it was removed. Hey guys, do you think leaving this a little vague will create any unforeseen problems in the future? Cannonball! And those unforeseen problems were now beginning to rear their ugly heads. As the nation developed, the North and the South developed along two very different lines, and two very different cultural identities emerged. Northern cities began rapidly industrializing, while the southern climate allowed for large plantations of labor-intensive crops. As a result, one half of the country didn't rely on slaves, while the other half had become economically dependent on them.
How true is this? Look, I know it's an educational video, so it should be true, but I hear a lot of arguments towards this, saying that it was actually the North that were profiting. And I don't know entirely, but do you all agree that this is absolute truth? Because I've heard different things.
In 1793, Eli Whitney's cotton gin caused the slave trade in the South to explode. While in the North, a growing abolitionist movement was taking root. A general mistrust began to develop between the North and the South, as Northerners felt the South were hell-bent on expanding slavery, and fear spread throughout the South that the North wanted to take their slaves away. In 1819, there were 11 free states and 11 slave states. A perfect balance. A happy medium. A harmonious relationship. Hey guys, nice to meet you. I'm Missouri, and I would like to become the 23rd state. Hey buddy, welcome to the nation. We'll be happy to accept you as a free state. Oh no, you don't. You're trying to get one over on us. Missouri's gonna be a slave state. Okay, listen, why don't we just ask Missouri what it wants to be, and we slave state. Well, then, allow me to introduce to you the newest, freshest state on the scene, Maine. Hey, you can't do that, and you can't have any more slave states above this line. What? The issue of slavery is solved, and it will never come up again. A few years later...
I didn't know any of this. I'm so uneducated on the American Civil War. I'm okay on the Revolution, but the Civil War, again, we don't get... It's not in our curriculum at all.
Slavery is solved, and it will never come up again. A few years later, it came up again. You see, as America expanded westward, each new state or territory that was added threatened to upend the delicate balance between the slave and free states. If one faction managed to outnumber the other, it could gain an easy majority and force its own ideals on the opposing side, leaving a huge portion of the population feeling spiteful and oppressed. For a while, compromises kicked the can down the road and kept the volatile balance in check, as new free and slave states were roughly added in pairs. But then one loudmouth state just had to barge in and ruin everything as usual.
Is it Texas? It's Texas!
The addition of Texas saw the United States enter into a war with Mexico, which they won, gaining a huge amount of land out west and creating even more problems.
A huge amount of land. Let's just not overstate. Let's not understate how huge that amount of land was.
Mexico, which they won,
Look
gaining
at
a
that.
huge amount of land out west and creating even more problems. Hey guys, nice to meet you. I'm California, and I would like to become the 31st state. Hey buddy, welcome to the nation. We'll be happy to accept you as a southern slave state. Oh no, you don't. You're trying to get one over on us. California's gonna be a free state. Okay, listen, why don't we just ask California what
Free
it wants
state.
to be, and we can free state.
Yeah.
Well, then, allow me to introduce to you the territories of New Mexico and Utah, able to freely vote for slavery themselves. Hey, you can't do that! And we can enter Northern Territory anytime we want to recapture escaped slaves. What? The issue of slavery is solved, and it will never come up again. A few years later...
Jeez, that was a rule. The North would let the South states in to recapture slaves. I didn't know that. Fugitive Slave Act, 1850. 1850, like... That's crazy to think how recent that is, isn't it? Like how much... Well, a lot of people say nothing's changed. A lot's changed. A tremendous amount has changed, in my opinion. But it's crazy how recent that is.
The issue of slavery is solved, and it will never come up again. A few years later, it came up again. In 1854, a Democratic senator from Illinois wanted to build a really cool choo-choo train here and proposed that the territories of Kansas and Nebraska be created open to slavery, even though they were clearly above the Missouri Compromise line. Obviously, the northern states were like, hell no. But the southern Democrats who controlled Congress at the time were like, well, if you love liberty and democracy so much, then you should let them vote on whether slavery should be legal or not. And so it was. Huge numbers of pro- and anti-slavery settlers rushed to Kansas to sway the vote in their favor. And while they were all there, they began to beat the crap out of each other. One of those settlers was a man named John Brown, a former businessman who failed at just about everything he tried and went arguably insane. He was a radical abolitionist and dedicated much of his life to the Underground Railroad and freeing slaves. One night, in revenge for an earlier raid by pro-slavery forces, he and his sons killed a number of pro-slavery settlers in the territory, helping to kickstart years of violence known as...
Yeah, he might have failed at a lot of things, man, but he was certainly the right guy for that job, wasn't he? And a good man by the sounds of it. I'm a Free State guy, by the way.
number of pro-slavery settlers in the territory, helping to kickstart years of violence known as Bleeding Kansas. Kansas and Nebraska both eventually voted in favor of outlawing slavery. But from here, the tension began to grow at a rapid pace. In 1852, author Harriet Beecher Stowe penned Uncle Tom's Cabin, a best-selling novel that exposed the terrible cruelty of slavery to the world. Oh, how awful. How morally corrupt a nation must be to allow such things to happen. Your Majesty, what should we do about all the starving children working in the coal mines? Nothing! In 1854,
Yeah.
the Republican Party was formed, and Abraham Lincoln emerged as a leading figure. Southern Democrats viewed the new Republican Party with mistrust, believing it to be radical and abolitionist. In 1856, a politician named Charles Sumner gave a speech in Congress, calling out slave-owning Democrats with fiery language. If slavery was a woman, she'd be an ugly one, and the senator from South Carolina would like to boink her. Representative
wow.
Brooks, do you have a rebuttal? Oh, I have a rebuttal, all right. Yeah, here's a rebuttal for you. Oh, come on, surely this isn't allowed. I don't know. I'll have to consult the rulebook. I can't find anything about caning a political opponent, but it says here I'm not allowed to wear women's underwear. Uh-oh. News of the violence on the Senate floor took the nation by storm. Southern slave owners sent Representative Brooks new canes to replace his now broken one. And on the floors of Congress, politicians carried weapons in self-defense,
Oh my
which is
God.
never a good sign. In 1857, the Supreme Court ruled in the Dred Scott case that all people of African descent, slave or free, could not be citizens, and therefore could not sue for their own freedom under any circumstances, undoing years of progress with the strike of a gavel. Now,
Wow.
within all this bitter debate over slavery, there were many nuances. North versus South, Republican versus Democrat, states versus the federal government. But let's strip all of that away. For 4 million individuals living in America, this wasn't about political intrigue or party alignment. It was about the basic human right to be free. Men, women, and children were stolen from their homelands and brought to the American continent, where for generations they were considered to be property, forced to live in poverty, and work from sunrise to sunset. Plantation overseers did whatever they felt was necessary to get the most out of their slaves. Punishments were often barbaric. Families were regularly separated, and parents could often only watch, as their children were auctioned off, never to be seen again. Thousands of slaves took the treacherous risk of running away, and abolitionists in the North helped many escape via the Underground Railroad, as bounty hunters entered the North to chase them down.
Underground Railroad. Why does that sound familiar? That sounds familiar. Underground Railroad. That sounds so familiar, and I don't know why.
Escaped via the Underground Railroad, as bounty hunters entered the North to chase them down. Leading figures within the abolitionist movement included many
shit.
significant free black men and women. But it's important to note that for many of the anti-slavery white individuals in the North, opposition to slavery was often an economic issue, not a moral one, as many worried large plantations would take their lands and livelihoods away.
I mean, that's,
Abraham
personally, I feel that's a bit of a cop-out. I understand what he's saying about the economy will collapse without the use of slaves. I get that. But to say it's not a moral argument, it's an economic one, is definitely a cop-out. That's...
individuals in the North, opposition to slavery was often an economic issue, not a moral one, as many worried large plantations would take their lands and livelihoods away. Abraham Lincoln knew that slavery was a moral evil, and he regularly spoke out against it in powerful speeches that helped him rise through the ranks of the new Republican Party. He
Honest
lamented
Abe.
at the hypocrisy of a great American nation meant to stand as a shining beacon of freedom, while also enslaving 4 million men, women, and children. He most famously declared in 1858 that a house divided against itself cannot stand, that one day slavery in America would end. However, even Lincoln was cautious in his opposition. He didn't want to outlaw it entirely, but simply prevent its expansion, so that given enough time, he believed it would naturally die out. Thankfully, history would force his hand. In October 1859, one abolitionist decided he'd try to single-handedly take down slavery by force. Who would be crazy enough to even attempt such a thing?
Yeah.
It's our good friend, John Brown. He planned to seize arms from an armory in the town of Harper's Ferry, free the slaves there, and continue south, inciting a major slave uprising along the way. A noble cause.
What a legend. He's like the modern-day Spartacus. Well, the American
Slaves
Spartacus.
there, and continue south, inciting a major slave uprising along the way. A noble cause. A bad plan. And terrible execution. Brown's men took the armory and some hostages, but were quickly surrounded by one Robert E. Lee and his U.S. Marines. Brown was captured, and a couple of months later, he was executed for treason. Northerners sympathized with Brown, but Southerners were like, "You see this? They're coming for us. Soon, there'll be 1 million John Browns." 1 million John Browns? What on earth are you thinking about?
Imagine that was the case.
1 million John Browns? What on earth are you thinking about? A John Brown farm? Yeah, me too. To make matters worse, new northern free states meant now the southern states really were outnumbered, and they were beginning to feel bitterly spiteful and oppressed. Further fear began to spread in the South when news broke that a relatively unknown figure had just secured the Republican Party nomination for president. Abraham Lincoln, mostly well-liked among anti-slavery Northerners, had made some of the most powerfully worded speeches against slavery of any politician at the time, and now there was a chance that he and his cheekbones could become president. For the South, that would be too much. In the 1860 election, Lincoln's name didn't even appear on the ballot in 10 southern states. But much to their horror, when the final results came in, Lincoln had won by an electoral college landslide.
He wasn't even on the... As if he wasn't even on the ballot and he still won by that much. What a legend. Can't hold that guy down.
Lincoln's name didn't even appear on the ballot in 10 southern states. But much to their horror, when the final results came in, Lincoln had won by an electoral college landslide. Lincoln himself tried to calm their fear. How many times do I have to tell you, I'm not gonna take away your slaves? Yeah, right, Honest Abe. We've had enough of you Northerners. We're gonna go form our own country. You can't do that. Why not? Well, if you had won the election, would it be okay for us to leave? Of course not.
Hey, how familiar does this sound? Do we talk about it? Yeah, I do. You remember when like Donald Trump was voted in and everyone was like, oh, I'm going to move to Canada. It's not my president, not my country. That's what it reminds me of. Such a stupid argument that is. I don't know. I feel like, this is not me supporting Trump, but then for you to elect a president, or not you personally, but as a country elect a president, and then want him to fail, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Why would you want the captain of the ship to crash? I get like people don't like him and stuff like that, but it just reminded me of that, that's all.
Why not? Well, if you had won the election, would it be okay for us to leave? Of course not. Well, why not? Because that's not how victim mentality works. Many states felt that when they joined the Union, they always would have the right to leave.
Wasn't gonna say it.
Pleased. Many people living in 19th century America often felt more loyalty to their state than to the nation. And now, with the South feeling like it had lost its voice in the federal government, they were out of here. South Carolina was the first to go, and over a period of 6 months, one by one, 11 slave states officially seceded from the Union, with just 4 contested border states opting to remain. The seceding states issued a number of official documents justifying their secession. South Carolina proclaimed that it was northern states' hostility to slavery that rendered the federal government illegitimate. Mississippi declared that their position was thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery. And in a speech, the Confederate vice president stated that the new Confederate government rested upon what he called the great truth of racial inequality. Revered American generals, such as Robert E. Lee, opted to side with their states over the Union.
Right.
And with all the chaos, one New York lawyer wrote that rather than a bold eagle, America's national bird should be a debilitated chicken. And hey, I kind of like that.
I like the bald
watching
eagle.
the crisis unfold, knew it would be his job to solve it. Lincoln was just about to hop on a train and become the President of the United States of America. Hey man, you're hella ugly. Grow a beard or something to hide that face. Good idea.
Nice.
Still ugly. With assassination plots already underway, Lincoln had to travel to Washington, D.C.
So, okay, I hope it starts to explain now the flags. Because, you know the Dixie flag, what's it called? I don't know what it's called, man. The red, white, and...
Heavy disguise and protection.
I don't know what it's called.
All along the way, he received stacks of threatening letters. May the hand of the devil strike you down. You are destroying this country. Damn you, every breath you take. Love from... Grandma? At his inauguration speech, Lincoln once again reiterated that no, I do not want to take away anyone's slaves. But for Lincoln, he did want to preserve the Union. He declared secession to be nothing but an illegitimate rebellion. In your hands and not in mine, he said, is the momentous issue of civil war. You can have no conflict without being yourselves the aggressors. We are not enemies, but friends. It was clear Lincoln was ready and willing to get freaky and open up a can of Scatman John if he had to. Whether he had the support of the people, however, was in question. In the end, it was the Confederates that fired the first.
The Confederate flag, that's what it's called. Right. So, I'll end this part there. But, okay, here's the question I have there. The Confederate flag, I know it's a contentious problem. What do you guys think of the Confederate flag? Is it, if you have the Confederate flag, are you in part supporting slavery? Or, the southern states, which are, according to this video, associated to slavery. I'm not saying I don't believe this video, it's just that I've heard other things of why the war started, and I don't know. Let me know where you stand on the Confederate flag, because I know there was a, you don't have to go far down TikTok and someone's holding a flag and there's a war going on in the comments about it, and other people are saying it's my right to wave whatever flag, it's the Dixie flag, it's, I feel closer to this flag than the American one. Please let me know what you guys think, because that's something I just don't know anything about. I don't know. I learnt a lot this video. I didn't know anything about the Civil War. Obviously, this is only we'll call it like part 1, and then the other one will be like 1.5, and then we'll come over here and we'll do 2. But, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know if you're enjoying all of these. But, yeah, definitely get at me. The likes, the comments, and all the subscriptions, honestly, man, they mean a lot. So, I really appreciate you guys. Take it easy. Peace.